we are going to introduce translation technology. First, we will give a brief definition of translation technology and then take a look at its history. Then we will introduce the two major types of translation technology and look at its benefits and limitations. Also, we're going to introduce some state-of-the-art translation systems. Translation technology can be defined as a computer-based tools and associated resources and standards used within a translation industry. So the term translation technology is used to refer to the technologies employed by translation professionals for the purpose of research, automation, productivity, and integration. In the 1950s, Georgetown University and IBM created the world's first machine translation system. It employed a rule-based lexicographic approach as it relied on predefined grammatic rules and dictionaries. So the appearance of electronic dictionaries and terminologic database in the 1980s greatly increased the potential of translation technology. In mid-1980s, an early translation management system is produced by Coventry Lancaster Polytechnic University. Between late 1980s and early 1990s, IBM researchers introduced statistic machine translation system. It was word-based and able to translate from one language to another by analyzing large amounts of parallel texts in two languages. So it was considered as bilingual corpora. In early 1990s, some of the major commercial computer-assisted translation tools appeared. And then with the release of a new version of IBM's statistic machine translation engine, it became a major commercial system until Google entered the same field in 2006. This new version of IBM's SMT engine was phrase-based instead of word-based. The launch of Babelfish was the first free online MT system by Alta Vista. As early as 2000, the first cloud-based TMS solutions appeared on the market. In 2006, the launch of Google Translate, it was SMT-based. In 2016, Google Translate switched to neural machine translation, which was a great improvement on SMT. So we are going to introduce the major two types of translation technology. The first is machine translation, which was defined as a translation that's performed wholly, partly by a computer program. In spite of the improvement over the years, high-quality machine translation is still difficult to achieve because the human language is ambiguous and subtle. So machine translation couldn't understand what the tasks when they are translating. As for computer-assisted translation, it is the use of computer programs to help human translators with specific aspects of the translation process. It is different from machine translation, as the computer programs only support and facilitate the translation rather than doing the translation themselves. But Machine translation could be used within some CAT tools now. So the major function of CAT tools include translation memory, terminology management, and quality assurance. They are usually brought together with one single CAT tool. Translation memory tool or translation environment tool to help translators work faster and more efficiently in one single environment or graphic interface. For machine translation, we will introduce rule-based machine translation, statistic machine translation, and neural machine translation. For CAT tools, we will introduce its major functions like translation memory, term bases, quality assurance, and translation environment tools. As a rule-based machine translation system, RBMT was the first approach to machine translation, so it's relatively mature. RBMT consists of two basic components: the rule for representing syntactic knowledge and the lexicon for representing morphologic, syntactic, and semantic information. Rules as well as lexicons are based on linguistic knowledge and are created by expert linguists. So the build process is costly and the system requires a lot of maintenance. The RBMT system is also incapable of adapting to new demands. SMMT builds up statistic models by analyzing bilingual corpora, which we call the translation model, and monolingual corpora, we call it language model. The system automatically learns translation knowledge from a large amount of data instead of relying on human experts to write rules. A typical neural machine translation model works by deep learning and contains two components: the encoder network, which maps source sentences onto a real valued vector, and the decoder network, which creates a translation. Some of the major systems use MMT include Google Translate, DeepL, Amazon Translate, and Baidu Fanyi. There are some major components for CAT tools. Translation memory is a database storing translation that were previously produced. So the translated sentences or segments are saved as a bilingual pair of source and target segments. Translation units refers to the term to a stored aligned source target pair. The content of a TO can be reused if the source text is exactly the same. We call it 100% match or exact match. And also, if it is slightly different, we call it fuzzy match. So the advantages are it increases productivity and enhances translation quality by making sure that the terminology and expressions are used consistently within and across translations. For the disadvantages, it usually operates at sentence level, possibly disregarding the context a sentences are embedded in. So we have an issue to deal with pieces of text smaller than an entire segment. A term base is a terminology database containing concept-oriented entries in a multilingual format. Each term base usually relates to a specified subject field, such as medicine, automobile, information technology, and so on. and each terminology entry represents one concept rather than one word. And each entry in a term base used for translation contains a term in different languages, and possibly with definitions, synonyms, and possibly an indication of whether the term is forbidden. As for whether it may or may not be used in certain contexts. Quality assurance is a process of identifying possible errors in translation, consisting, for example, omissions, discrepancies in terminology, the use of forbidden terms, differences in layout, locale, such as the style of writing numerals, times, currencies, numbers, symbols, and names. Translation environment tools is a system that integrates different functions within one single interface, such as features for importing and exporting content from different file types, a text editing environment where the translation is performed, translation memory, term-based, quality assurance, interface with external machine translation system, etc. So the benefits of translation technology include: it is generally practical to access and easy to operate. Also, the efficiency could be improved. And then the end product of the translation will be of good quality and acceptable for translators. Also, it can be integrated across many platforms. Last but not least, it could enable more flexible collaborative work, as team members can collaborate and share their translation assets with each other in real time. But for the shortcomings of translation technology, the major one is some translation technology interfaces are difficult to learn, and it could have limited performance in certain domains. Also, we have to make sure the maintenance of the devices. Now, we will look at some state-of-the-art translation systems. For example, DeepL. It was originally founded in 2009 in Germany as Lingui, an online dictionary. It is essentially a multilingual, publicly accessible translation memory, as it consists of millions of kernel segments. To create this product, Lingui scraped bilingual text samples from the internet using web crawlers, and then applied machine translation algorithms to evaluate quality. So the technology behind DeepL and its well-curated data set with its approach to neural networks yield outstanding results in certain language pairs and domains. The second system is Systream. Systream was founded in 1968. It was the first company to offer machine translation on a commercial basis. The modern Systream uses a hybrid approach that combines RBMT and MMT in order to facilitate consistent translations, terminologic compliance, high performance, and the possibility of learning from existing mono and bilingual corpora with few customization costs. Also, it shares its knowledge with OpenNMT, an open source NMT ecosystem. MemoSource is a commercial cloud-based TNT. It includes translation memory, templates, QA, and third-party machine translation engine. It supports machine translation through the MemberSource Translate Hub, and it is available as a mobile app on Android and iOS devices. Total Studio is also a TNT. It is successor of the Translator's Workbench. Now it is considered as a market leader. Unlike MemberSource, most people use the desktop version of Total Studio, as it runs side by side with the company's terminology application multi-turn. Total Studio includes machine translation integration and post-editing into its translation workflow. To summarize, in Module 1, we have introduced a definition of translation technology and take a brief look of the history of translation technology. Also, we introduced machine translation and computer-assisted translation. And we introduced some benefits and drawbacks of translation technology. At last, we introduced some state-of-art translation systems. That will be all. Thank you.